Okay, good evening, everybody, and welcome to episode 10 of the Malton Travel podcast. We are recording this on the 1st of April. Happy April Fool's Day, everybody, and Monday, Thursday as it is. Evening, Nicholas. Evening, Bruce.
Evening.
Good evening.
Have you played any April Fool's tricks on anybody?
No, my wife did.
Yeah,
What'd you do?
My wife rang me at work, said I got a speeding fine on the M6. And I had to go and do a speed awareness course. I pointed out that I'd already done a speed awareness course some time ago, and therefore it would be a fine. And then I said April Fool, which he thought was highly hilarious. Highly hilarious. Yeah.
I work on the first floor at work, and I've got a Minster view. So, of course, no leaves up. She's got a cracking view over to Minster. So I ran downstairs today and told everybody downstairs at Job Centre the Minster was on fire because all the windows are blocked out and the doors were locked. So they all rushed upstairs and got the windows, see the Minster on fire, and I said, April Fool. Yeah. The woman was it amused.
We posted a story about meerkats being used to drop into POW camps to help tunnel out.
Good one. And of course,
I'll tell you what spoilt it. You always get them clever dicks who post in the comments, "Oh, it's an April Fool." I mean, why do that? You know, you just spoil it, because the way we wrote it, we even had a photograph of these two British Army guys holding two meerkats we photoshopped, and it looked really convincing. And so the way that we worded it, it could have almost been sort of real. But as soon as you click on the Facebook, some clever dick's written, "Oh, it's an April Fool, didn't get me." It's like, well, yeah, post a comment, but after 12 o'clock, because some folks might have fallen for it. So, yeah, that's what we did. And they had to undergo intensive parachute training so they could be dropped into the POW camps.
Then again, I did read something today that did say that with this current, these are my views, not anybody else's views, Michael O'Connor, by the way, with our current government, you can never believe what they come out with anyway. So April Fool's gone a little bit. And it does feel like, Bruce, tomorrow, proper Irish Good Friday, doesn't it? Because the pubs are shut. Just like they are in Ireland on Good Friday. I've been there a few times at Easter and Good Friday, and it is one of those things where unless a special knock to get in the pub. I remember we once stayed on a golf course. We stayed on a golf course one year, and they did say we could sneak in and have a beer because in Ireland still it's pretty much a dry Friday, isn't it? Good Friday to completely dry day, really. Yeah, so it's all good fun. So I can't believe we're on to episode 10. I was driving home this afternoon thinking last day of term, which is great. Trying to think back when I had some mad idea when I was getting very down and depressed in bloody deepest, darkest January, and thought, do you know what? We're missing the pub so much. We've got to start talking about it. So I think within probably about a week or so, we agreed that we were going to start doing this. So we've made double figures, gents, which is feels good.
Yeah,
and
all those people listening.
Yeah, I think we're over 300 views on YouTube now. Fantastic. So this week we are going to, and we mentioned this a couple of times. I think certainly one, Nick. I think me and you probably last one we went together was, God knows, it probably feels years ago. It's probably at least 18 months ago. We went on a bit of a North Yorkshire tours trip. So we're calling it Smugglers, Ice Cream, Steam Trains and Beer, the North Yorkshire Moors and Coast, as I put in Twitter today, but we mean Coast. So a nice little journey, not too long, very scenic. Again, it's easy, could be a nice little weekender or an overnighter. And we will also definitely mention the North Yorkshire Moors Railway. And we are hoping, fingers crossed, everybody, with technology, that one of the Yorkshire Railway special stars is going to join us at some point. Although, as I pointed out in Twitter this week, whenever he's on the telly, he's always drinking hot chocolate and eating cakes at every bloody station, isn't he, around the way. Anyway, we'll leave that till a little bit later on, see how we go. And I think mentioned last week, I've got a lovely picture there of Whitby and a Whitby brewery glass, which I love, which I was drinking, but my son's been drinking it, so I haven't got that tonight. And I'm hoping that that's going to be the first place I'm going to go for another pint after the 12th of April. Hopefully Whitby Brewery, I think, they keep advertising for staff, so I'm hoping that they're going to be open from next week. And I know, Bruce, you've been up to Whitby this week, haven't you? A little bit of a soiree.
I was up there yesterday. I think it was quietly brisk, but really, really sad seeing all those pubs closed. I mean, Whitby's a great place, but obviously, when the pubs are closed, by the time you've had your fish and chips and an ice cream up there in the pier, but the pubs are closed, it's a bit like, what should we do now, really?
Yeah.
But
I did notice.
Bought some sausages, bought some Whitby buns from both of them, and that was it, really.
Yeah. I did notice in Yorkshire Post today, there's quite a front page article about, just trying to tell people don't go mad. You know, obviously the bank holiday weekend's coming up, and they said about Whitby. Whitby Beach is great. You can social distance, but obviously to get to the beach, you've got to walk down very narrow streets, haven't you? And certainly when I was there in October, it's pretty busy. Right, let's go do the quick beer roundup. Nick, I've got some interesting beers tonight. See, Nick, what are you on tonight?
Keeping it Yorkshire.
All right.
So starting with a Wharfdale Brewery Yorkshire IPA.
Different one. I don't think
It's
I've had
a
that.
very bitter beer. No, I've just cracked that one. Obviously, Wharfdale, we have that normally in the Flying Ducks in Ilkley, don't we?
Ilkley, yeah.
That's a Wharfdale brewery. So yeah, Yorkshire IPA, which is a very bitter one, a little bit more bitter than I expected actually. And then following it up with, in its original form, used to be one of our dad's favourite drinks, was the Acorn Breweries. It's not Barnsley bitter. This one's a Yorkshire Pride, so that's an IPA as well, I do believe. So yeah, Yorkshire Pride, that's that one. I'll tell you what that one tastes like a little bit later.
Bruce, is there any point in asking you about beer tonight?
Well, not yet, unfortunately. I've tried a little bit of Spurs lager and stuff like that, but really, I did open a can of craft the other day, but it was pretty grim. Funnily enough, my next door neighbour had a very mild case of COVID, and he drinks craft beer every day. And I was going to actually ask him at one point to be my proxy for the beer highlights, but actually, he's had exactly the same thing.
Really?
He cannot face beer.
Right.
It's really bizarre, yeah. What I have got though in the cupboard, I'm going to try stuff. I've got both thumbs of Whitby Timothy Taylor landlord infused fruit cake, so I shall crack open that later and see how beer it is.
That's reminded me, Bruce. I had some beer infused food earlier this week. I didn't realise it when I bought it, but I bought some boiled ham from Morrison's.
Yeah, that's coming up in a minute.
Yeah.
That's cool.
All right, okay.
That's a beery highlight. Leave that one. Leave that one for now.
Yeah.
All right then. Well, I don't know why, but for this last week or so, I've just got into stout again. I know we had that. I was drinking some homebrew. I've been on my homebrew tonight, which is gone, which I probably had too much of tonight. And I've just started. I think probably because the sun is shining and summer's heading up, and I'm going to move back onto the IPAs and things. I just thought I'd get rid of my stout. So, this is my podcast first. I've had some free beer this week. Thank you to my brother-in-law who's works for Mercedes, got a new customer, and there's a new brewery in Stoke called Kickaboo Brewery, which apparently is a new brewery behind Titanic Brewery, which is obviously a great brewers there. They've just got one beer at the moment, and this is their Boston Cold Brew Porter, which is actually going down quite well. It's very nice, that one. So I'll try to give a shout out to them. And then I mentioned last week, I got a couple of Brew Yorks, and I think they do two versions of this So remember last week, it was the peanut, caramel, marshmallow, whatever, pecan one. This is the 10% version. So as I said, I'm on holiday now for a couple of weeks. I'm going to crack that one towards the end of the podcast, and I might fall off the chair. So I'll let you know about that 10% shortly. Right, just to pick up some things from last week, we did York Part 1 last week, and we ventured west of the river, which I know again there's been quite a lot of people watching that and listening to it. A couple of points to pick up really from that one. We mentioned the toilet in the maltings, and true to form, good old Sean has come back to us with a little bit more detail. He really enjoyed the podcast, he said. And the toilet, Bruce, you were pretty clear actually. We were trying to decide, weren't we, how long Sean had taken over the maltings, and he actually said that they actually arrived there in 1992. So it was I think you did 30. It was actually 29 years that Sean and his wife have taken on malt, which is, a hell of a run, isn't it? And he kindly gave us a bit more detail about the toilet. Again, and a little bit more background about we mentioned that it was called the Lendl Cellars, and it was
Lendl Bridge.
Lendl Bridge, sorry, and then it was.
So that's probably why we never knew it was Lendl Bridge, because early 90s when we started out in York and going to York.
Yeah. So apparently, when the pub was being done out, the toilet is the signature of the original architects, who were called Mallard Design. I think they're based in Ilkley, I think. And they wanted to kind of leave some. This is who's done this building. And it was obviously, Nick mentioned, it's eccentric. There's kind of doors making up the bar and the roof and things. So apparently that toilet was there, like the mouse man leaves his mouse. That's the toilet. And Sean said they actually wanted to put a whole cistern in, but he put his foot down and said, "No, we're not having. We'll just have the toilet." So it was really good to to go there. And I might come back to the Maltons in a minute as well.
He could have put his beer in that cistern, though. You know, all the beer out the slops trays at the end of the night. You know, you could have put that in the cistern, and then anybody who was tempted to flush the cistern, you'd have like a cascade of beer coming down.
We talked a little bit about, well, Bruce, you mentioned Malmaison, which I'm going to come back to in a minute, and I thought you two were involved. And there is a tenuous link to you two, but actually it was Simply Red, apparently. It was the people who were producing and behind Simply Red that put the money into that first Malmaison hotel.
Oh, right.
And apparently the idea they had was to create a hotel chain which pop stars would want to aspire to go to. And that's why they are slightly upmarket. So we'll come back to that one. And then we mentioned, we talked a lot about Roundtrees, didn't we? And terrace and things. And again, I did a bit more digging and I've got some more to come back. And I know, Bruce, you were mentioning this, that Roundtrees were quite cutting edge. They were a marketing company, they got into marketing quite early on. And in fact, they're actually linked to something called the marketing revolution in the late 1800s, early 20th century. They hated Cadbury's, apparently, good as all good Quakers would, and they were determined to try and knock Cadbury's off the kind of top shelf. And they were one of the first companies to really get into, and there's a couple of examples, I'll put an example there, into this whole marketing branding, which we talked about a couple of episodes ago. So it's actually quite interesting, actually. And Nick, the bit that we were talking about chocolate and the cost of it, and of course we missed out cocoa. So it was actually cocoa, which was that bit where they got into the working classes. And in fact, in that book there I've looked at, they've actually got mobile cocoa units that used to go around York, for example, outside all the factories. So especially on a payday, when all the people were coming out, they would be there flogging cocoa, hot cocoa to them. Don't go to the pub, have a lovely cocoa, which was that idea about keeping them out. So really interesting. Yeah. And I didn't know the Railway Institute in York, which again, me and Nick have been there quite a lot. We were brass banders. That again was all Roundtrees, and it's exactly what we said last week, providing those alternative entertainment, cultural things to keep you at the pub, get into your music, get into your drama. So that was really interesting. And we also talked a little bit about the temperance movement. In fact, that's going to be a little bit of a theme tonight. And we talked about breweries in York. So I've done a little bit more digging here. In fact, I've even gone and bought another book called Pubs Around York. And it has a nice little bit in there. But I tell you what, there was a great local history website around Clementhorpe and Fishy Road that we talked about last week. And really fantastic, lots of fantastic detail. Especially about, I put a picture of the Maltings down there, the left-hand picture for those on YouTube. And that's now, I think, Bruce, a new housing development, but apparently it's the old Maltings. The Clementhorpe Maltings were certainly in the north, were well renowned and did lots of maltings for all the breweries in Yorkshire.
Oh, I can't place that building.
Yeah, it's probably, I'll try and find out where, I'll pass you where it is. So in the book, it says that in 1850, York had 13 breweries. But by 1875, York had 7 breweries. And as we were suggesting, trade diminished because of the Beer Act of 1869, which we've talked about that a few times before as well, that kind of changed the way that breweries could operate. But actually, it was also the temperance movement as well. And it wasn't necessarily Roundtrees and Terrys, it was the clergy, and a particular Reverend Canon Argyle. So I've got a picture there. Apparently, he was renowned for turning down applications for breweries or pubs or brew houses in York in that late 19th century. Apparently, he just kept saying no to everything.
Yeah. Boring God lover.
Yeah. But I've actually given a list there of, so there was a Friargate Brewery in York, there was a Clementhorpe Brewery, there was Sinkinson's Botanical Brewery, which is a little bit like Fentimans up in Northumberland there, that do ginger beers and things as well.
Non-alcoholic.
Yeah. Hotham's, we mentioned, I think they became Tadcaster Tower, which we talked about. There was a Hunt's Brewery, Peacock's Brewery, Monk Bar, Kilby's Brewery in Tanner Row, Yates Brewery, which is in Friargate, and Brett's Brewery, which is now Yates's building.
Actually, Michael, I should have reminded you about Johnny Hunt's, because as you go down Fulford Road, if you're coming York down the Fulford Road, where the barracks are, about 300 metres before the barracks, you've got those single-storey, almost arms type houses.
Yeah.
Immaculate landscape. And people think they belong to the barracks, but they don't. Everybody in York calls those the Johnny Hunt homes.
Yeah.
And they're actually run now by a trust that still exists, a foundation was set up by the brewery. They've immaculately kept these little houses, and the people pay like very reasonable rents, and they're really sought after. I think now we just got to be over 55 to apply for one.
Yeah.
But yeah, sure,
Yeah.
it's still
No,
there.
it's interesting.
Yeah,
So
I remember Hunt's Brewery. Don't remember it, but the name definitely come
sticks
across
around.
Hunt's before. Yeah.
And as we said last week, there are now 3 breweries in York, which is Brew York. We mentioned 3 non-beards. I did a bit more work around Ice Cream Factory and apparently another Beer Limited. Again, doing quite a lot of work together. They've kind of joined up a little bit during the thing. 3 non-beards are based in the Rook and Gaskill basement. So it's actually the guy who runs Rook and Gaskill, and he set up a brewery in the basement there as well. So interesting. So I'm going to do a bit more work on this because it's really got me kind of into this. And I say I've been doing a bit of research this week, so we might come back to this because it's really interesting. But it's as we said, really, it's a combination of, Nick mentioned the space, the medieval town, lack of space and things. We talked about the temperance, the Quaker movement, and then we've talked about the Beer Act. We perhaps need to read a little bit more on that.
It still does seem surprising for a city like York, though, with the sort of like diverse trade and certainly the number of bars which Bruce has mentioned. The number of bars and restaurants. There aren't more breweries. I mean, traditional breweries need the space, but with your new microbreweries now, you can literally set up in a garage or in a spare room as such, just to supply a local little outlet, local little trade. So it's surprising. I know we've got some of the outskirts, but when you look at other towns and cities, when they're into double figures for the breweries in recent years, it is still surprising that in 2021 there are only actually 3 small breweries in the city centre.
Well, as Bruce said, that's again, and you said the same point. Really, that's probably now to do with things like rent, Bruce, isn't it? The high rates that you've got to pay to be in that city centre. So as a
controversy about the rates in York. Lots of the properties owned by Canadian teachers' pension funds. That's because in the past in York we had Pearl Assurance, became General Accident. They were very wealthy. They then had links to these Canadian teachers' pension funds, and ultimately, lots of property in York apparently is owned by the trustees of these various Quebec and Ontario pension funds. On top of all that, some big commercial landlords there. The city council own quite a little bit as well. And of course, they, as with all commercial property, they can't see a decrease in the rents because they think there'll be a domino effect. So it's almost like a standoff now. To see Coney Street now is really quite shocking.
I was surprised though, Bruce. There was a property on Coney Street for sale the other day.
It was,
£455,000. So I assume that's freehold.
Yeah, I mean, what's great. I mean,
you talk about Coney Street. I didn't think that was too bad, really, because it had two stories above that was could have been residential accommodation. Exactly. And it wasn't a big shop, but like you say, for a freehold on one of the busiest streets in a tourist city like York, I thought, well, I expected to be a little bit more, really.
It is. It's kind of a sign that the commercial landlords are sort of saying, right, let's just give up, let's sell it, which is, that was unheard of at one point. They never sell these things with us. So if they're if they're giving up on the street, though, it's not good, is it, really?
No, and I do worry about some of those bars and pubs, as we've talked about. We're not still. I'm listening to a few podcasts this week, people saying that we're not sure yet how people's trends and what are people going to do. We talked last week about, are you really want to go back to the pub? We're getting so used, and I heard on the Opinions podcast today, you can now sit at home. I could sit at home tonight on my iPad and order beer from across the country, a fantastic range of beer, fairly well priced, and by probably tomorrow or maybe Sunday, it would be on my doorstep. And I couldn't do that a year ago because a lot of breweries didn't have web shops. They were, they were local only, and now it's kind of, I don't know. So you worry about those high rates and high rents and whether they'll be able to keep going, really, with the uncertainty of how I guess at the moment they're on rate holidays and the staff are furloughed. So it's interesting how that will pan out, right?
I mean, I was staggered. I went looking for a Yorkshire pudding beer in the House of Tommy Badness last Saturday. I've not been in there, I don't think, since before March last year. And whereas there were three and a half walls of bottles and half a wall of craft beer, now there's literally 4 walls of craft beer and just the bottom shelf had some real ale on it. It was just staggering, really. And I suppose the shelf life and the cost, the variety. So there's definitely a craft beer revolution coming on now. It's that was staggering to see that though in there.
Nick, we had one outstanding question from last week. I don't know, do you recognise his car park or why this might have been?
This must be King whoever. I mean, it's a surprise it took him so long to find him when he had a big red circle on top of him.
So we were right. It wasn't Richard. You were talking Richard II, who made the decree about having beer signs so that you could.
He had his official beer tasters for taxis. Yeah.
So it was Richard III that was found of the car park in Leicester a couple of years ago. So we just thought we'd clear that one up. And beery ham. Cool then, Nicholas. Tell us about this ham you've been eating this week.
Yeah.
It's a theme, isn't it? We've had cream egg beer. We've had Marmite cornettos. We had some other weird beer combination, didn't we, as well? And now you've been eating beery ham.
So there I was, rummaging around in the reduced fridge in my local Morrison's, and came across this. I didn't really take much notice. It was Saltaire blonde ale ham. All I saw, it was starting off at £2.65 for, I think there was 4 slices in there. I thought, blimey, that's a bit expensive, down to 89 pence. But as you can see by the use-by date, it was still good. So acquired it, got it home, had it in a bit of a sandwich and thought, oh, this has got a different taste to it. Looks closer at the label, Saltaire blonde. Now, we've actually been to the Saltaire brewery, didn't we, Bruce? That was our last trip out that way. It was a bit of a trek down.
Blonde.
Yeah, it was a bit of a trek down by the canal there. It wasn't an unpleasant walk. It was slightly industrialised. The brewery itself is sadly, it's just to say there's all those wonderful architectural mills and things like that around there. Sadly, it's just an industrial shed, isn't it, Bruce?
It is.
And once again, because we were, I think it was either a Monday or Tuesday, there wasn't anybody else in there apart from ourselves. And the lad behind the counter was just going through the motions, I think, of, he would probably prefer that we hadn't been there. He could have cracked on brewing or whatever he would normally be doing. So, yeah, we didn't stop around long. I think we had 1 or 2, didn't we? Had a quick mooch. They haven't got a shop as such. They've just got a cabinet with a few bits and pieces in. But so tried the Saltaire blonde ale ham, and it wasn't unpleasant. It had a sweeter taste to it, but there we are. Saltaire blonde,
and they've got their logo, haven't they, on the pack, which is quite nice for them as well. And I don't know how they get obviously something from it. So very.
Although I don't, we know we beer logos in West Yorkshire because Ossett had a fantastic logo, and they've gone and then again Saltaire. Remember, they've quite nice pump clips. That's dire, isn't it? Really.
It's just an S and a B for those that are again not on the YouTube. It's a circle with a big S, a B, with a slash and a dot below it. Which again, Bruce, some marketing expert, has probably charged them several £1,000s to come up with that concept. So
it's outrageous, isn't it?
Yeah. It's the logo next to it that people are offended by nowadays. Though, so I've been reading the press. People are offended that the Union Jack is put on these products. I mean, talk about our snowflake society.
Well, hang on though, Nick. I'm going to say, living in the potteries, that we had Union Jacks on pottery and made England for pottery, and the irony was they weren't made in England at all. They were stamped made in England because there was some loophole that you could make pottery, for example, in China, import it into England and finish it in England, and therefore you could stamp it made in England. So I'm not quite sure it's all about the flag.
That's the ironic thing. You go to China, Hong Kong, Japan, they love wearing the Union Jack. People around the world love our flag.
Anyway, let's not. Come on. Let's stop. We're talking about beer. So, beery news. Our beery news this week. I put in the one about Ilkley. They are brewing. We've got Ilkley a few times tonight. They are brewing a new beer for 2021 called Hope, which is a optimistic pale at 4%. I thought that was quite nice, isn't it? Good little idea, that hoppy Hope beer. Nick, I think you sent me. This is the our kind of area. Their beer list, or not beer list, their pub list for this year's next year's G. Good.
This is a short list which they then ask members of CAMRA to vote on.
Yeah, and again, interesting. We've quite a few of those pubs we might mention tonight. And if you want to, again, we've mentioned in previous episodes as well. It was quite interesting. And then Bruce, you sent in one about Wetherspoons are going to open 18 new pubs.
Yes, astonishing, 2,000 jobs, and another one in Leeds as well for us. Another one in Sheffield. Yeah.
Interesting. So it sounds like Kieran has joined us.
Hey up.
Hello.
He's got the Italian as well. Mr. Kieran Murray, how the devil are you?
I'm very good, mate. How are you?
We're very good. We're very good. So Mike's talking. Can you see us all as well, Kieran? Are you on the?
I can see you. Yeah.
Right. I'm gonna jump forward to your profile picture on the Yorkshire Railway, because we're not quite got there yet. But we're gonna talk about Malton first, Kieran, which you know very well, and then we're gonna get to Pickering on the coastliner, I'm going to jump on the world's best preserved steam railway. So
I don't think Kieran never went out drinking much in Malton. He was too busy hanging around Wentworth Street car park with his
No, I didn't get out eventually.
with his hot rods and things like that.
Yeah, well, someone needed to terrorise the town, didn't they?
now, Kieran, we always start this podcast by just checking what we're all drinking. Now, your Uncle Bruce is a bloody letdown. He's doing a beer podcast. He hasn't drunk beer for about 4 months now. I know you're very busy at the moment, obviously getting ready for opening. If you are drinking a beer, or if you were going to drink a beer, what would you be drinking?
Believe it or not, now I was just have to get a Southern Comfort actually.
Oh well, you go with that. I don't mind.
Different. I'll have to have a beer. I've had enough of beer this week.
Because you're regular at the Malleon Spout, aren't you?
Yes, I am. Yeah.
Oh, that's useful because we're going to talk about that in a short while.
Yeah.
What do you think when you go in there?
Black sheep normally.
Oh,
right.
Yeah, and always black sheep.
Kieran's a remarkable young person. How old are you now, Kieran?
I'm 32.
He's 32, so he's been going to pub since 18. I've never seen him put his hand in his pocket and buy a drink yet. That's not bad in 14 years.
That's how you should do it, isn't it? Cheap now.
We can't all get away with it, though.
I know, it's starting to get a bit harder to do it now.
I should think so to 14 years.
So just for our listeners that are listening to us, I know we have some guys that listen to us in America and in Spain, and I know some of you will be on the podcast and some of you on YouTube. You might have worked out that Kieran and Bruce are related. So Kieran is Bruce's, no, other way around. No, hang on. Kieran is Bruce's nephew, and Bruce is Kieran's uncle. And if you have managed to catch Channel 5's The Steam Railway, ignore
Yorkshire
Piglet. Yorkshire Railway. Ignore Piglet and all them other freaks. The guy in the carriages who always gets them out of problem is Kieran, who's normally either drinking a hot chocolate or in the middle of some event, managing to find stuff that will turn the lights on or the sound on and work it through. Have you been filming again, Kieran? Is there another series on its way?
At the moment, because of COVID, it's stopped that. But at the moment, we're busy doing actual proper films at the moment.
Proper films, because you're also a Harry Potter theme place, aren't you? Because was it
believe it or not, where I am actually doing this now, I'm actually sat in Harry Potter's Hogmeade Station.
There you go.
I was using the first ever Harry Potter.
Is that Gromont that was Harry Potter?
Goathland.
Oh, Goathland, right, okay. Good stuff. So we're going to come back. So I'll tell you what, let me flip back to where we were, because we've just know, I've got one more thing to challenge your uncle on. Bruce,
go on,
you had this wonderful idea telling us about the Whalebone Hotel in York, and you were waxing lyrical about sitting on that rooftop in a few weeks' time.
Fantastic.
And now you've told me that it's going to be an Asian tapas fusion cocktail bar.
That's not quite so good.
You could be in the Maltins, which I've got some pictures on the screen here. You could be in the Maltins having a lovely pint of Rudgate or a lovely pint of Osset. Are you going to really go on that rooftop knobby hotel and have a
not if I have to spend
cocktail?
£30 on some Asian tapas for a bottle of beer, I'll stick to the Maltins. But yeah, it does look impressive though, doesn't it? Yeah.
Not really, no. I think I prefer to be in the Maltins in one of those, looking at, as we said last week, all those fantastic signs, drinking some fine ale, sat on that toilet seat. I think that would be the best thing to do.
Sean might start stocking some prawn crackers behind the bar or something.
Or Sean could do the chili, actually, offer the chili to the Asian fusion tapas bar at Malmaison.
No, that's Mexican, not Asian.
And
hot stuff.
Hot stuff. So the plan tonight is we are going to do this North Yorkshire Moors Coast tour, which is one of the last little beer trips that Nick and I went on some time ago, and I'm up there in a couple of weeks' time. I say when Boris lets us out, I'm off to Whitby. Why not? So we're going to start in Malton because that's what the bloody podcast is called. But obviously, you'll probably just want to get off the train in Malton, possibly, and then get yourself towards Pickering. And I was just thinking of a quick pit stop in Malton. So my recommendation would be the Brass Castle.
Was that pit stop or piss stop?
No, we did all that stuff last week about York Taps toilets, so we're not going to go back there again. Kieran, there's a theme every week. We end up, your uncle and Nick talk about toilets virtually every week. It's some kind of fetish that they have about pub toilets, which is becoming a bit of a theme, really.
We've mentioned Kieran's toilets as well. He's got some new toilets on his carriages now, so you don't have to lie in the poo on the tracks anymore.
I knew that would come up eventually, yeah. Let's talk a lot of shit.
Now that could be a Channel 5. That could be definitely a Channel 5 program in its own right. That kind of, the turds of the railway. Anyway, so nip up if you get out the station at Malton, sorry, either off the bus or off the train. If you zip up, whatever the gate that is, over the river, in front of you will be the Brass Castle Tap House. So Brass Castle is a brewery that seems to be going massive. I keep to hear it all the time, and lots of people talk very highly of it. I particularly like their Bad Kitty, so I definitely have a pint of that, which is a very nice kind of porter stouty beer, which is quite nice. The tap house has got slightly limited. I think it's the licensing laws in our great town, so they're not open like a normal pub, and they're fairly limited opening hours. So please double check if you're getting there fairly early to Malton. Just check if they're open or not, and they tend to open towards the end of the week and not at the start of the week. So the alternative we said was Nick's Local, which is the new Malton, Nick, which you've mentioned a few times, up in the marketplace, which again is only about 5 minutes walk, I guess, from station and thing. They open a bit earlier because they're a bit more of a kind of a pub, restaurant, cafe type place in the day. So you'd probably still get a beer there, Nick, wouldn't you? Fairly early on.
Yeah.
And what about the front bar, the Spotted Cow? Surely worth a visit.
If it's open,
Close.
because
it's under refurbishment. It's surrounded by scaffolding. So I went through a peer through the window the other weekend, and I'm just hoping that they haven't changed it too much, because it looks like they put new floor in the front little snug, which used to be that classic Yorkshire stone on the floor.
It did, yeah.
The Rose's mirror, embossed mirror, has disappeared from over the fireplace.
Oh,
so I'm just hoping that some of the originality is left. As far as I know, it's still Rory Queen that had the manager landlord of it. I think the Fitzwilliam had insisted on it being refurbished, because obviously the estate owned the pub. Rory wasn't too keen, because Rory was still involved with Chapter 2, and also he'd taken over the Creswell Arms that very sadly had a fire in there. But as I say, it's been closed for at least probably all of last year during lockdown. Been closed a year and a half at the moment, Bruce. But I say, work is being done on it, but I just hope that they haven't ripped the bloody guts out of it, because it was, we've talked about it before, it was one of those Teclis heritage pubs, and certainly the room on the left-hand side with the classic Yorkshire stone floors and the old wooden benching, that's still in there. If you remember, it was very narrow benches. It wasn't the most comfortable seating to sit on, but it was very, very traditional.
But again, just if you've not been to Malton, Malton is, it's was a market town, is a market town. It's quite unique at the moment in that the market is still hanging on. It's still pretty much in the centre of town, and this pub kind of looked over the market. So it was obviously when the farmers came in on market days, it had early opening, so you get a pint there at 8 in the morning. And I think we would say that left-hand little snug is probably one of those you must visit this pub and just have even if you want a lemonade or a frothy coffee, have it in that front bar. And there's a picture on the wall there of two guys outside that pub. And I've tried to find that picture. It's one of those Tetley bitter men join them. And it's a classic picture of a very early morning, two farmers, two market guys in the white coats, having a pint at about 7:30 in the morning. But anyway, there we go. So
they used it as part of their national advertising.
So
it was one of the series that they used.
So Malton might be just a quick pit stop. There are other, there's cafes and things, and you can always pop in there. But you need to jump on the coastline, unfortunately, because in the good old days, there was a railway from Malton to Pickering, which went kind of by the villages. Unfortunately, that was Mr. Beeching, and we will go. Stop me about going on about Tories in the past and ripping up railways. And I don't know, Kieran, if the North Yorkshire Moors Railway make millions, you may in the end build a railway back to Malton, which would be fantastic.
Yeah. No, unfortunately, last time we did a feasibility study, we were looking at 22 million. It's isn't it? A lot of
there's a new cycle track being built. It's just been developed in the next month. Put new surfaces down, so you don't have to go along the A16 now. You can cycle from Malton railway station to Pickering railway station via the bridleways and backways and back lanes. So that's something new that's coming to town.
Kira, am I right? And that was quite. I thought it would have gone straight up, but apparently did it go via Rillington and then up through marshes?
So it used to Rillington Junction. It was a straight off there, then to Low Marishes across,
and then across that way. So unfortunately, you've got to get the bus. So we've mentioned the coastline before, which is a cracking little service, and you can get all the way from Leeds all the way to Whitby and Scarborough on the coastliner. It will be full of silver surfers, so you might have to stand up because all the pensioners on their free passes will be there. And look out for my mum and dad and kick them off the front
Taking the
seats.
flasks and the sandwiches
Yeah.
wrapped in tin foil, fighting for the front seats up top deck.
If they're like our mum and dad, they won't even get off the bloody bus. They'll just do a circuit because it's free. So they'll just get on the bus, go to Whitby, and come straight back again on the bus.
Smelling of
'Cause
egg,
that's
tuna
what you
and
can do
wing.
when you're. Anyway, so you've got to get the bus. You will go past somewhere called Eden Camp, Nick, which is probably worth calling in if you had a spare half an hour, and you might even have
Half an
some
hour?
beer there, wouldn't you?
Half a day.
What
Half
we're
a day.
drinking?
Yes, we're looking at we're looking at potential supplies at the moment. We've been using Cropton in the past, or should they be called the Great Yorkshire Brewery, or should they be called the 84 Brewing Company? But obviously, with a number of different breweries in the area now, we're looking at all options. But yeah, we used to have the Eden Camp Bitter, and we used to have Tunnel Buster, but then we swapped Tunnel Buster for a beer called Blackout, which is one that Cropton make, which is a very nice. Once again, it's a porter, vanilla porter, and that's my favourite out of the two, actually. So yeah, unfortunately, we don't sell enough beer to put it on keg or cask, so it's just bottles at the moment. But yeah, there we are.
So you definitely have to get a ticket for the railway. But to be honest, if you were looking for a day out here or maybe a weekend even, the day tripper rate that Coastline is pretty good, quite effective, because that would get you in, from, for example, Whitby down to Scarborough and then Scarborough back to Malton or Leeds or York.
1750 they're quoting on their website at the moment, and that
That's what
is
it says on the screen,
literally.
Nick.
All right, okay, well that yeah.
There, look.
All right, yeah. And they
I
said
don't just make this up, I do do a little bit of preparation. And
Hey,
think about it.
I was looking more at the seagulls and stuff. That's a black gull there, and it
All
looks,
right.
looks
Hang
like
on.
a kittiwake on top
Shut
of that
up.
sign.
Shut up. Right, move on. So you get on the coastline and you go via Thorntondale, which is very nice, and you end up in Pickering, which is kind of a bit of a miniature Malton, really. It's a place that feels like it's kind of on its way up again. It's got a very nice little kind of high street with a couple of nice pubs and some nice shops there. Again, you probably won't have very long because you're cracking on here, as we always say. Really, we'd certainly say try and get in the sun. The sun's on the kind of the main kind of Kirby Moorside Scarborough Road, a little bit slightly out of the town centre, but it's a cracking pub that's been in the Camera Good Beer Guide forever. A 2-room pub, isn't it, Nicholas? Not a 1-room pub, as sometimes can be a mistake. 2-room pub with a lovely big beer garden as well, actually. And I've put in the notes they do quite a nice beer festival. And then you need to head towards the station, which you can't really miss in Pickering. It's fantastic because it's literally on the end of the high street, and you'll probably smell or hear or see the steam trains, which are often in there as well. There is quite a handy little kind of station hotel across the road. I quite like it in there. I've been there a few times. It's not too bad.
That's actually shut down at the moment.
Oh, has it?
And I don't know what's happening. There's plans that we're trying our hardest to buy it and turn it into a proper railway themed pub.
Yeah.
Wow, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, which is unfortunately we're dealing with Green King.
I've noticed of Greek King. They have rooms there as well. They're looking, so if you were when it does reopen, it would be a great place to stop because you could come back and on the train and stuff. Nick's mentioned Cropton. I'm going to come back to that in a minute. We've talked about Cropton before. That's where the Great Yorkshire Brewery is based. I think you'd probably have to get a taxi out of Pickering to get up to Cropton, wouldn't you? I think from Pickering at the moment.
Yeah, that's all you can do. Yeah.
There's probably a bus once every 3 weeks that goes there and back again, and there's unfortunately no trains. So what you've then got to do is you've then got to get on this North Yorkshire Moors Railway, and that goes from Pickering up to Gromont, and on good days, Kieran, it also goes to Whitby, don't you? Is that mainly in the summer?
So every day of the week we go to Whitby now.
Right.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
So,
and at Gromont, you can also nip on to, you get on the Northern Rail to Middlesbrough, couldn't you, as well? And
that's it, yeah.
The Ask Valley line as well. So Pickering, Levisham, you can ask to stop off at Newton. I don't know why you wouldn't get up at Newtondale. There's bugger all there, but if you're walking, I guess it's a nice place to go. We mentioned Goathland, and then I don't know, is Gromont kind of the centre of the railway, or
Gromont's where our engines are all based and all our heavy engineering. So you can there's a really quirky pub there which you have to do. It's a Railwaymen's Club. It's called the Crossing Club.
Oh yes, we've got that later on. Yeah.
So we'll get on to. But but there's a really good walk. If you get off at Goathland, you can walk down the original railway line to Gromont.
All right.
And if you get a few beers, it's a beautiful walk out in summer.
Gromont can get quite busy though, can't it? I've always felt that Goathland's are often a little bit quieter than Gromont.
Yeah.
I think all your kind of trained spotted guys go to Gromont, and there'll be lots of cameras working around. And then, as you say, you can then you stop at Slights and Russup, or do you go straight to Whitby from Gromont?
We go straight to Whitby.
Straight to Whitby, yeah. Which again, there is a service, a Northern Rail service that stops at those other places as well. You could get off.
Kieran, if you had to jump off at Levisham and go up to the Fox and Rabbit at Lockton, how long would it take you?
It'd take you at least 45 minutes.
No, that's
a massively stiff uphill climb as well, isn't it? But worth a visit, isn't it, the Fox and Rabbit at Lockton?
Yeah, the Fox and Rabbit's absolutely amazing pub. It really is a stunning pub. It's just the distance and the hill you've got to climb up.
It's okay coming down, but you really know about it. But if you're in the mood for a really stiff hike and a sense of achievement, worth going to Fox and Rabbit. It's the path takes you more straight up there, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does.
Sort of using the.
When was the last time you did any stiff hiking, Brooks?
Well, I've watched the train from the top of the hill at Levisham.
And then I've also just put on the right hand side there for those on YouTube the Esk Valley line, which is the Northern Rail line, or whoever owns that. I don't know what it's called these days. The Tory government rail line,
yes.
which runs from Gromont to Whitby, or actually from Middlesbrough to Whitby, and it calls them at Gromont. And then we've mentioned Slights, haven't we, Nick, before? There's a couple of pubs in Slights, but they're very often not open. There's a good pie shop or a good butcher's we've mentioned. You can walk. It's a nice walk from Slights to Whitby, and actually down there again. That another rail track there again.
That's a beautiful walk.
Yeah. And under the lovely arches.
You've got the pub at the bottom of the hill. Blue Bank is it? That is a Green King pub, and then you've got the Salmon Leap, which is down on the river. But I mean, once again, that's been I've seen for the last year and a half. It's just been refurbished. It's had skips outside. It's been absolutely gutted. So I mean, it might be worth looking there once they finish, because the amount of time and money they must have spent on the place, it should be pretty spectacular inside, but not quite sure what's happening. Do you know anything about that one, Kieran?
I don't think it's actually opening back as a pub. I think it's off to become accommodation for the potash mine.
Yeah.
All right, okay.
Unfortunately, it's really looking like that from what I've gathered. Because
I mean,
they were making more money doing that than running it as a pub, unfortunately.
Just accommodation, right? I mean, the location once again, because you're by the railway, you're also by the river, aren't you?
Yeah.
Yeah, but
again, you go further down to Russup and you've got the bridge, which is a nice pub.
Yeah. But again, that's a really weird opening hours. That it never seems to be open. We've been there, isn't it? But I guess
it's just got new management now. Actually,
right, okay.
Hopefully it'll improve.
Yeah, and it's lovely. That's a nice way.
We might do that when you're in Whitby next week, Mike. If we're allowed to meet up, we'll have a walk out and have a walk around via there.
And I think if you're driving to Whitby, especially in the summer, I would always say go that way. It's a lovely little route down by the river there, and it's a bit quieter than trying to get in the top end, which you'll just queue probably when it's dead busy to kind of try and get in there, really. So, Kieran, we're going to talk a little bit about the railway now. I guess it's been a challenging, 12 months plus, really, hasn't it, for you guys? Because did you open a bit in the summer and then had to shut down again?
Yeah, unfortunately, we opened up in July and we managed to go to October, and then of course lockdown came in. But we had to struggle with our trains. We had to do social distance trains, so half the amount of people we can normally carry, and pre-booking and all this sort of thing. You couldn't just turn up on the day and go for a ride.
And I was thinking it's almost like a zoo in it, because these engines, these carriages, they're living. You've got to keep on them. So you guys can't all be furloughed and just come back in a year's time. I guess you've got a core staff that have had to work throughout this with volunteers as well. Just keeping those things ticking over a bit like you would for animals.
Well, that's the problem. At first we tried doing a full lockdown and everyone going, but it created so many problems. So we found within the first month of lockdown, you couldn't afford to do that. We had to have staff in nurturing these engines, doing the repairs they needed. And we've still got issues now from having that 1 month off.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah, because it is a full-time 24/7 sort of operation.
I think that's what comes across on the TV series, that it is, it's a labour of life, it's a labour of love, isn't it? That you guys are so passionate about this. And I know you have a core staff, but you have so many people who volunteer as well. And again, just want to make the big shout, really. I know you've got to kind of just give in asking people to support the railway. We made a donation before we kind of did this one, and it's quite easy. Go on your website, you can get that. And I think that's gone quite well, though, hasn't it? You've had a few pounds for that, have you?
We've done really well. Yeah, the donations and grants we've had have been absolutely superb. Like they've what made us survive this long. Because unfortunately, other railways in the same boat as us haven't survived. Goathland Railway in Wales. Unfortunately, that's on the
Really?
brink of closure.
That's it. Okay,
Wow.
that was
Yeah, the
Yeah.
administration they're in. So it just shows you.
No,
So the support of people have been brilliant, and the more they give, the better.
and I think the other thing that comes across on the TV, Kieran, is that you guys are always having to think forward. You're always having to kind of plan for either bringing the punters in or thinking about what's the next thing that you can do. I guess there's a lot of logistics about engines and rail carriage around the country that you swap, you share, don't you? And I guess all that's just completely gone to pot, has it?
Yeah, completely. It's, overnight, all that these big events we had, like our War Weekend, Steam Galas, the whole thing was cancelled. There was no way you could do it. You couldn't have mass crowds. Pickering at War Weekend can have up to 90,000 people over that weekend. You just can't do it. So we've lost War Weekend this year as well, unfortunately.
And had you got engines elsewhere in the country that had gone off the thing?
We've got carriages and engines on hire all over the country, so we couldn't do anything with them. They were stranded where
they're
they
all
were.
stranded there. And I guess it's not cheap to put an engine on top of a flatbed and drive it, whatever, 300 miles. The best that's not cheap, I'd imagine.
Unfortunately, it's $5,000 every time you want to do that.
Yeah, God. So even standing still, you lose. You're bleeding money, aren't you?
You are. And the worst thing, believe it or not, the worst thing for a train is keeping it stood still.
Yeah.
Because the damping coaches and that is just there within days. It's unbelievable.
Yeah. Right, come on. We're going to talk about beer now. So, any links with beer? I mean, I know Cropton actually do some beers, don't they, that link to the railway, and you do offer. You sometimes have a real ale focus on some of the trains, and you obviously have beers on the train and stuff.
So what we might be doing this year, we're doing a Steam Gala, and we're hoping to have a beer festival tied in with it at Goathland, and have up to 50 beers on tap.
Wow,
and that sounds a good plan.
That's end of September, and that's hopefully what we do that for is that actually pays to bring all these visiting engines in and coaches, and that pays the transport bill.
You've had a beer festival before, haven't you, Kieran?
Yeah, it's our fifth beer festival now. So we've grown. We started off with 12 beers, and now we're up to 50. So we're not doing bad.
Fantastic. I think, Jen, that is a podcast in the future. I think we will be there broadcasting live. Now, I want to. Obviously, we've talked about Cropton Brewery, or Great Yorkshire Breweries there now, and they have done a few beers for you. And here we have another two. I won't say stars. Well, Piglet is a bit of a star. I'm not sure about Chris.
Chris is looking a lot thinner because you've stretched the photograph there.
Yeah, you have. Yeah.
Do you get a fan mail, Kieran, on this TV series?
I do, unfortunately. I've had some quite attractive women on it as well.
Whisper that one.
Yeah.
And I guess Piglet does as well. I bet Piglet gets little grannies that want to take him on.
Yeah. He loves the granny attention, yeah. And he gets all sorts of random things knitted for him, and you name it. I'm
not imagining the chief gets a few. Does he get any fan mail?
Yeah, I think he gets some unusual mail. I won't say fan mail.
So what's it like doing that TV series, Kieran? Because it's been, I know lots of people who watch it who don't know about, the railway. They just love the scenery, they love the crap, they love you guys. They just love, you are so passionate about what you do, and I guess you're all very natural. You're not bloody media trained or anything. You just do your job and talk about it.
Yeah, it's quite hard because obviously you've got to do what you do on a normal day with a bullet poking a camera in your face, and it's not just at the railway. See, they follow you home. I could be going for a weekend out at a steam rally, and they'll be following you with a camera. You're trying to do your own thing with your friends, and there's a guy poking a camera. It gets a bit awkward.
Yeah, I can imagine. Yeah, and I guess they film loads and loads and loads, and you only get to see it.
They absolutely film mountain loads. They can be with solid for months, and out of that month, they might use 10 minutes.
2 minutes, yeah.
It can be a bit annoying when you've done, and sometimes you've done some really good stuff, like really interesting stuff, but someone who's with you won't sign a release form, so the whole thing's completely nonsense.
Oh, right. And how many series? It must be 2 or 3 series have you done now? Is that?
This is our third series, yeah.
Third, right? Okay, yeah. And I presume you get a bit of wonga for doing some of this that helps the railway in a and obviously great.
The railway gets paid. We don't. Obviously, we're just at work as normal. Yeah.
It's the advertisement and promotion, Kieran. I think after the first series, your pre-bookings for the the catering, the nighttime evening meals that you did, just basically, I think it went phenomenal for you, didn't it?
It just went insane. It crashed our website, unfortunately. Straight away, we couldn't handle the traffic on our website. It was, but it's so bizarre because out of that, we've been doing loads of unusual things. Like, You know, we've got to. We've had to write poems for kids, and I've taken a coach into Hull College as a training exercise for children, for kids at Hull College. Yeah, doing so many bizarre
That's
things.
fantastic, isn't it? That's really good, really good. Right, look on. Let's talk about beer then. So we're on the train. We've gone through Lewisham. We haven't stopped at Newton because there's nobody walking people getting off, and we've arrived in the heart of Heartbeat country. And again, for those people of a certain age, this is that kind of Mad Police series that it went for quite a while, didn't it? Actually, with
15 series.
Bloody hell. And anybody who'd been in a soap opera who wasn't very good ended up in Heartbeat, didn't they, basically?
Yeah.
So Emmerdale rejects, Coronation Street rejects. Anyway, it was light-hearted Sunday night television where a bunch of coppers.
Oh, well, once again, it put that little part of North Yorkshire on the national map. And, people from all around the world, even though it hasn't been aired on television, a new series in the last, 10, 15 years, people still come to see Heartbeat.
They're obsessed with it. We've got people from America and Canada who actually think all that stuff's real. Like, they absolutely love it.
Yeah. And the village was a shithole, if I've been honest, when I was kind of younger. And obviously, it's made the village. And bless them, they dress up, don't they? They have the police car and stuff. And of course, I always remember Goathland being famous for its sheep, because the sheep just wandering shit everywhere throughout the village, don't they? Now they're a bit of a star performance now. So the Goathland Hotel was the agency of arms in the process. That was always full of coppers. So all the robbers always used to go to the post gate in, which actually is quite away from Goathland, isn't it? It's up in what's it called?
Exton.
Yeah, up the road there. And that was the Black Dog in the series. And then you mentioned the Malton Spa, which I've always been in there. It's quite a nice hotel, and it's named after a very famous waterfall, isn't it? Around the back, which is lovely. And
you've also now got the Inn on the Moor, what's straight opposite the Aidensfield Arms.
Right.
That's beautiful, that is. Absolutely stunning.
All right. That I couldn't find that. No, that's not in Watts pub at the moment, so we'll need to check that one out.
Oh, you need to give it a try. It's a cracking pub.
Well, that front bar near the reception area, the Malton Spout. If you go on a cold winter's day, they've got that great fire roaring. That's fantastic. And the actual little snug bar itself, just set back from there, is really atmospheric, isn't it? It's well worth
it. Very traditional sort of country hotel, country inn, isn't it? With a lot of wood, a lot of varnished wood, and comfy fixtures and fittings. Yeah. Very traditional.
But I'm guessing actually the Malton Spout is not a bad shout, because the other places get absolutely rammed. Certainly in high season,
as I've said, I wouldn't recommend the Heartbeat pub at all.
Yeah,
it's you don't get service with a smile. Let's put it that
way. So now we've also got to mention, while you're in Goathland, you have got to make, I think it's about a mile up the road, but this is again probably one of those little gems that again. I don't know. As you can see in the picture, that it can get quite busy in high season. It's one of those ticky pubs that a lot of beery weedies want to tick off. But I've been going there. Well, me and Bruce remember going there when he served out of jugs, didn't they, Bruce? Didn't have pumps. Yeah. When the old lady was there. This is a classic little country boozer. It literally is the middle of nowhere, and yet thousands of people get there. The Birchall Inn, which is a place called Beckhall, which is about a mile, Kieran, from.
It's a mile downhill, yeah. It's a nice walk.
Now, am I right in saying you can actually walk down the old railway line from Goathland to there, can't you?
That's it. You can walk down the old railway incline straight to it. It's a nice, it's a beautiful walk.
Yeah.
And then my notes say, which I think I've got from one of the pub guys, it says basically there are two rooms. One is called the big room, which is very small, and the other room is even smaller. Yeah. And then in between, you've got a fantastic sweet shop. And to be honest with you, Bruce, you spent more time in the sweet shop, I think, last time we were in there, than you're drinking beer. You came out with fecking thousands of pounds worth of bloody bags of sweet, because it is one of those little old-fashioned sweet shops, isn't it, that you can sell everything. And God knows how they get the stock and stuff there. I don't know how they get the stock. I don't know how they get the beer there. But
that's my usual summer's night. That finish work, go down for a pint. Can't get better.
Yeah. And I guess, Kieran, after about 6 o'clock, 5:30, it's quite nice, isn't it? It's mainly
beautiful because all the tourists have gone. You've got to yourself,
yeah. What time do they open till, Kieran, of an evening?
8 o'clock normally.
Right. Okay.
So
depends how much you're supping, Bruce.
So you stagger back from there, and again, I guess, Kieran, will that be open at lunchtimes in the summer as well?
It opens 12 till 2 on the daytime, then it opens up again at 6 till 8.
This time of year, normally it'd probably be closed at lunchtime, wouldn't it? This time of year, normally.
Yes,
Or
it would, yeah,
Easter would have been, but it opens up. And then you get, and in terms of the trains on your line, Kieran, how often are they running?
We normally have a train every hour.
Every hour, yeah. So you've got a part of it. You could probably have a quick drink in Goathland, zip up to the Birch Hall, and probably get back within an hour. And wouldn't you just maybe you get the next boat train, and then the next up the line is, as Kieran said, is Gromont, which is the kind of more of the kind of epicenter of the railway. It's where all your engine sheds are, and interesting little town. Really, do you know what I learned this week? That Gromont means big hill, doesn't it, in French? And I lived around there for 30 odd years, and I never realised that that's what it comes from. It means big hill, because there is a fecking big hill, isn't there, to get up to down to Gromont.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
it's a nightmare. Trust me, when it snows, it's a nightmare.
Oh, I can imagine. It's pretty steep, isn't it, Kieran, as well? It's steep.
Oh, it's very steep.
Actually. I'm amazed how the coaches get down. You know, those bloody tourist coaches, how they get up and down there.
Yeah, but normally don't make it though.
And as you said, there's some interesting little boozers. And you tell us, the Station Tavern seems to, they pump themselves up that they're a kind of bit of a re-phoenix out of the ashes, that they've done quite a bit of work on that. Very nice building.
So the story behind that is the station hotel in Gromont was actually, when all the volunteers started there, they all got kicked out because we were all a mucky lot. So all the engine crews decided, what we'll do, we'll open our own bar. And this is how the Crossing Club appeared.
Right, yeah.
And now they've just spent a load of money completely redoing it inside and out. They're finally getting some decent beers on. And they've completely come back to life.
Yeah.
So actually, and if you're a camera member, you can get in the Crossing Club. I understand. I know it's a members club, but I think if you're a camera member, you can get in there. And they sound to have some great beers on in there as well, by the sounds of it. So you've got some nice choices now. And I guess, again, you've got a footfall in the summer. It must be phenomenal in a normal world. There are literally thousands, as you said, thousands of people probably running on Gromont every summer's day.
It's worth mentioning. If you're on the dining train, you get your starter and your main course. If you go on the Pickering to Gromont way, and things turn around at Gromont, and you've just got time to nip off into the Crossing Club and have a half or a very quick pint and get back on board before the train sets off again. If you they will let you in from the dining train, and they're very quick to say.
The only thing to watch out for on a summer's Saturday when it's gorgeous weather is it's a gallon walk is Gromont on part of the route there, and it can get absolutely heaving with people from Teesside. Yeah.
And I guess it's to a point where you can't let more people on the trains, Kieran. That you'd literally have to say that we're full.
Yes, it does get to a point, it gets to a certain point where it's completely overcrowded. You have to wait for the next train, just like you would an underground.
Yeah.
But it's more the pubs that struggle than the railway, actually. Yeah. Crossing Club can probably hold maximum 40 people. It's a quirky little place.
Yeah. And of course, you've also got the Co-op next door, which again is quite interesting. That's again a very local kind of locals get the shop open.
It's the world's oldest Co-op.
Yeah. And just very good trade, I imagine, selling Harry Potter wands and God knows what else, I guess, in there these days, and Yorkshire fudge and everything else.
Model trains.
I was thinking the beauty of the steam train is you can hear it coming, can't you? So if you are sat having a beer outside the station and you've got a shot, you've got to get on the train, you can either smell it or hear it probably before it arrives, which is better than the kind of these new electric trains that just whiz into stations. So it's pretty good. As you mentioned, at Gromont, you can then get on the northern. So there'll be a regular service. That goes from Gromont as well, doesn't it? Is it another platform, Kieran, for the northern?
Yeah, so the opposite side of the car park, you've got another platform, your main line platform.
And that's your
Middlesbrough to Whitby line, yeah.
So you could, if you're lucky, you'll be able to get on the steam train and go all the way to Whitby, which I guess is a fantastic little ride, especially the last bit where you go under the arches and past the kind of the marina, which must be
Blackpool Viaduct. Yeah, it's gorgeous.
Yeah, it must be fantastic there. We walked over that viaduct
along the River Esk.
Yeah, lovely. And then you arrive in, I think, which is probably Britain's best bloody seaside town is Whitby. Yes, it's full of goths and weird people, but it's got some great beers, still got a bit of a fishing industry just hanging on there. It's got a great railway station with a very nice bar into it, which I spent quite a few hours last half term in October spending there. So if you know Whitby, you'll know about the famous arches and the very picturesque harbour. Work it through there as well. And as I mentioned, the great thing about it now is there is a fantastic little micro pub on the station, which is the waiting room. I've been open probably for 2 or 3 years now, but I just love this place. It's a fantastic little bar, great couple who run it and own it. It's not very big, and unfortunately, if you can't get in, you can't get in. They don't have a license to serve outside, unfortunately. So I put the picture there. There are literally 1, 2, 3, 4 tables. I always sat where I took the picture there in this corner here, which is a nice little table just by the side of the bar there. For a little bar that has about, I don't know, probably less than the Gromont Club. I don't know how many there, 20 probably. They normally, as you can see, they're 5 or 6 hand pumps on, and it was fantastic beer. They do those flights, so you can try I think they do 4s in there, 4 whatever they are, 4 quarters or 4 thirds, which is fantastic. So I don't know, Bruce and Nick, I don't think you've been in there, have you yet?
I've been in
No.
years ago. It's a great, the
Yes.
beers are great. There's
Really
a great
good.
atmosphere in there because it's always quite busy, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
I would say for the space that there is actually on the outside of the railway station, it's crying out to allow them to put some tables and chairs out.
Absolutely.
You're not going to get a clientele in there that are rowdy because
Why
they
are
don't
they not
sell
allowed to
spirits,
put
they don't sell
outside
lager.
furniture there, Kieran? Do you know why they're not allowed to put outside furniture there?
Network
Yeah,
Rail,
so
isn't it?
this Network Rail, that's the main
Yeah.
problem. We don't own the station, unfortunately. It's Network Rail owned and very, very strict on, alcohol around working platforms.
Yeah, which is sensible, I suppose.
But I mean,
yeah.
even I'm thinking on the outside of the station building, you've got a car park there, you've got footpaths, but those footpaths aren't used by pedestrians because if anybody walking from A to B basically walks through the car park.
Yeah.
So, you've got footpaths that are never actually going to be used for pedestrian.
And if I remember
transit.
rightly, it doesn't actually open on, as you can see there, it doesn't actually open onto the platform. It opens on at the side. I think they've done that on purpose.
There's like a little alleyway.
Yeah,
There.
yeah.
Yeah.
But it's a great little pub, a really nice couple in there. Just bear in mind, they don't sell lager, they don't sell Coke, they don't sell lemonade. So my missus had to drink cider in there, but she quite like that because she got again. They're great, given their due. They said, "Listen, do you like?" Well, I like rosé cider. So we've got 2 rosés. Try that one. Try that one. That's a bit stronger. That's a bit more fizzy. A bit like you get like my missus said, "I like Strongbow rosé," which went down quite well, obviously the micro pub. So anybody given their due, they said, "Fine, we'll find," and they did. They were really good. They found us one. So that would be my definite protocol. Whitby can be absolutely manic in the summer. Oh, manic all the year round, can't it? In a normal world, to be honest with you. There's stacks of pubs in Whitby. I've only chosen about 3 or 4 because there literally are thousands of them. There's a good Wetherspoons, which Nick we'd always go in Wetherspoons. I think that last time I had a pint with you was you were drinking Ghost Ship.
Yeah, I was driving.
Whatever it was, but I think the last time we had a pint together back in October 2020, which sounds very bloody weird. This is another place that I discovered last time I was in Whitby, which is up on the Botham Street, Bruce, where you know very well because it sells cakes and fancies and very nice pies. Which is it Skinner Street, isn't it? Skinner Street.
Yeah.
So you've got to kind of go up. It's kind of in the new side or the west side of Whitby, which we call the new side. And this used to be a ladies' whatever clothing
Milliners,
shop.
haberdashers. Yeah, it's a very traditional store, isn't it?
Yeah,
very Art Deco store.
Yeah. Again, fairly youngish couple opened this. It was crowdfunded apparently to get it open, and I've got to say I had some fantastic couple of afternoons in there. It was in lockdown, so they had the segregated seating, but it was great. Really, again, fantastic people. Really look after you. I think they do coffee and cakes in the morning, which is not bad. So they get a lot of yummy mummies people in there, and then out in the afternoon you get a few more drinking guys in there. Again, massive choice of keg and cask and bottles. And again, we'll ask you kind of what kind of beer do you like, and so I'd really recommend that. It's a bit surreal because you are literally sat in a what's it called, hosiery shop, where they were ladies' nylons there not many moons ago, but definitely worth just walking up the hill a little bit and getting into there and working it through. And then the other one, of course, which is one that we always tend to go to, Nick, which is in the Old Town. This is on the east side of Whitby. So you go over the famous swing bridge, walk through the very narrow streets of the Old Town, passing the jet shops and the sweet shops and the gothy shops, and there'll be lots of people wearing very weird stuff in Whitby because it's kind of goth capital of the north, isn't it? And the Duke of York is at the bottom of the 199 steps. There's the Board Inn actually next door, which is quite a nice pub as well, really. But Nick, I don't know why we've always gone to this pub, haven't we? Since we were quite small, really.
They've got a bit of a bigger fascia on the harbour than the pub next door, and you've got different sort of areas within the pub. even though they don't allow you to reserve seats. You've got the far end room, which is more for dining. Then you've got the bar area. Plus the choice of rail ales was slightly better. They always used to do Copper Dragon, but they seem to have moved over to
Osset now, isn't it?
Osset now,
Yeah.
yeah. But they always tend to have at least 3 or 4 rail ales on in there. And as I say, there's more chance of getting a seat in the window overlooking the harbour in the Duke of York than there is in the what's it next to the lettered board, is it? Something like that.
The boarding.
The boarding, yeah.
Well, they've
because
done a
it's
consistently high quality food as well for years. I've donkeys.
Yeah.
I was really reliable.
And I've got to say, it's a landlady in there, but the bar staff are great. And I know again, that's the last pint I had a pub in. Oh, is that right? The last pub I had a pint in October. And we had a great, Nick, you came out a couple of nights. My mum and dad came with us. We actually stopped in a little house down the little ginnel on the side there, which overlooked the Sandgate Beach. It was fantastic. But really good. Again, they have Whitby beers in there as well. So we had a few Whitby Jets in there, Nick, as well, didn't we? As well as the Ossets. And like you say, good food. And I put in the notes here, they do a ridiculously cheap lobster. So if you do want to try lobster or you like a lobster, it's ridiculously cheap when they get it, which is not
when it's
not
in
often.
season. Yeah.
But it's well, I don't know how much would it been it for a lobster selling there? 15 quid?
Yeah, I think the full lobster salad they're in 15 quid. I mean, even the fishmongers down the road, you're paying 10, 12 quid for a lobster. So
mad, isn't it?
And in Andrew
yeah.
Pern's place on the harbour, you'd pay probably 60 quid, wouldn't you, for lobsters? Let's be honest.
Yeah,
So
probably came from Taiwan.
So, and if you walk out the door, if you take a big sniff in there, you probably will smell most days, which is my favourite bit of Whitby, is Fortune's Kippers.
It's never open.
Yep.
I'll get off with you.
It's never open.
I don't agree with you. I've never ever been there when it's been shut.
I've barely been there. It's been open. I thought it
Well,
opened
you
yesterday.
got the wrong time, Bruce.
It always smells like it's open, so you go walking up the hill and it's bloody closed.
Do you not know the secret knock, Bruce? 3 knocks and a tap on the smoking door. So this is the oldie traditional. God knows how they get away with it because health and safety must give them a nightmare everywhere. This is a proper old kipper smokery. There's a little shop that doesn't look like it's been cleaned in about 300 years. And next to that, normally, as Bruce says, is billowing oak smoke coming out of this thing. And if you're lucky, they'll open the door for you, or you can peek in and just see these tender hooks full of, I think it's Norwegian, they told me last time I was in there. It's Norwegian herring now. But they are fantastic kippers. You ask for pairs because they don't understand any business. And I asked for, last time I went in, I asked for some, I said, have you got any bacon? I said, you did used to do bacon.
Well, you get it at the butchers. I've got some in the fridge.
Mr. Fortune just give me a mouthful saying, fuck off, you want fucking bacon. We sold kippers here. And I'm saying, you definitely sell bacon, mate. You get your kippers wrapped in newspaper. They are ridiculously cheap. If you get the large pair, you can feed probably a family of 16 on them.
We all like a large pair, don't we?
But it's worth doing. And walk back down, and then obviously you go up the steps, the 199 steps, up to the Abbey, which is where Dracula bounded up and his big black dog or whatever. So there'll definitely be people with black
took on the form of a black dog as he came off the wrecked schooner in Whitby Harbour, bounded up the stairs, and that was where his home was. Yes.
So you'll see loads of freaks, middle-aged people trying to dress up as kind of whatever they are, goths.
It's not that bad. There's only 3 or 4 days a year that they do it.
Oh, I don't know about that. They'll be shrieking around a bloody church. It's
the only thing they have to say at the Abbey is to have some respect, because they do tend to get ladies dressed in next to nothing, draping themselves over people's gravestones, which isn't very good, really, especially if it's your granny that's lying in that grave. So.
And I always say, actually, on the picture there, the church is the right St. Mary's of the Virgin, which is a Whitby's kind of parish church, which often gets a bit overlooked because the Abbey sits behind it. But it's a fantastic church. It's very weird inside. It's definitely going back several centuries. It's still a working church, but it was built by the shipwrights. So a lot of the kind of, you feel like you're in a ship sometimes. But I think they have all these pews, which are separate pews, box pews. And as you walk down, there's kind of third-class pews for visitors, and there's a whole social hierarchy where if you were poor, you couldn't see the vicar, and if you were rich, you had a very nice pew at the front, and they're all boxed off so you couldn't see who was sat in there. The posh pews have very nice cushioning and carpet. The third-class pews are literally, kind of fish boxes. But it's definitely worth going in there. It's a fantastic church to go in and look at. And then behind that is the Abbey, but more importantly, next to the Abbey is the Whitby Bridge. Look at that guy there doing that mash done there. What can you imagine working in a place like that?
Wow.
That's your view. And of course, the other side is the North Sea, which is over the cliffs and the lighthouse, which is a great place.
Amazing, isn't it?
So I must admit, I fell in love with Whitby Brew last time I was up in Whitby. Great place, great beers. We mentioned the Jet. Whitby Jet is great. Abbey Blonde's great as well. A fairly newish brewery. They're getting bigger and bigger. It's literally a farmyard that they brew out of. I'm really hoping on the 12th of April, as you can see there, they've extended their kind of tap room out into the forecourt. Put a lot of seating in there. They've got a pizza oven as well, which they've built in there as well. So it's worth the exercise to get up the steps. But a secret here now, if you get on the town tour bus, it takes you right up there for about £1 and drops you off right outside the doors.
Don't be telling everybody.
Definitely a walk up to see that.
We won't be able to get a seat next week.
If you're speaking about Whitby, because anybody who's not familiar with Whitby, it's probably one of the Britain's fish and chip capital now. There are literally dozens of fish shops. They all do fish and chips to an amazingly high standard. Rick Stein, famous seafood chef, kind of put the Magpie Cafe on the map. He said he thought they were best fish and chips he's ever had anywhere, but there's a lot of disputed views amongst people. Where do you think the best fish and chips are, Kieran?
At the moment, I think Quayside, next to the Magpie. I think they're gorgeous.
Yeah, that's one of our answers. I was at Mr. Chips yesterday because I used to go to Whitby about once every 3 weeks from work. And I'd play pretty good. They do a cracking piece of cod. Incredibly sweet, and they're a bit underrated. Michael, where do you feel?
Well, they always said Trenches was a good place to go. And I think when we were probably younger, we probably went to Magpie is great, but you always got a queue.
You do,
But I must admit, when we were there in October, I booked a table in the Magpie. And I had Scarborough Woof, which is a bit of a weird, strange fish that you need to know about it. It's kind of it's like a North Sea catfish, and I would recommend it. And it's a bit like monkfish, but between monkfish and a cod. And I've got to say, it was fantastic fish and chips in Magpie. We sat in and had it, and they have some nice beers on as well. So I still think the Magpie is hard to beat.
I'm inclined to agree with that. I think when it all comes to it, you can't. There's alternatives that are really good, but if you just come in the ones, making that one chip, got a queue to get in the Magpie because it's an institution, and those fish and chips are absolutely stunning out there.
Yeah.
Is that Mr. Chips over the other side of the river bridge? Where the Endeavour pub is.
It is, yeah.
I went there. I wasn't impressed, mate.
No, right, they were nice yesterday.
They make a big thing about it's Top Gear as promoted on Top Gear.
Yeah, it's where Jeremy Clarkson.
Right.
I thought,
it was a delicious.
Clarkson's opinionated by a lot of things, but if his recommendation fish and chips was there, I was thinking, well, he don't know what he's talking about.
They're in good form yesterday because it's even the queue for the takeaway. The Magpie was too big yesterday. So yeah, I suppose the thing about Magpie, it's becoming an internationally famous place. I mean,
well, it was Michael Winner, wasn't it? Michael Winner and Jenny Agatha used to promote it.
Now, obviously, I've been selfish and I picked these pubs because I was writing the pub list. What about you guys? Is there any other pubs that we perhaps should add to the Whitby list?
I like in the old town. There's a very small pub, and I forgot the name of it now.
The Griffin, Horse and Griffin.
No, not the White Horse. To the left of the White Horse and Griffin. The White Horse.
Oh, I know what you mean. The
Black Horse.
Pub.
Black Horse.
It is the Black Horse. Yeah, I like the front bar, the Black Horse. That's it.
Yeah. No, I agree. Yeah, me and Nick were in there. We met Tex in there, didn't we, Nick? We were meeting Tex in there.
Tex piss
with the bloody Stetson and all the bloody cowboy gear on. Sat in the bar at 11:30 in the morning.
And you'll be a regular around Whitby on the trains. Where do you go to, Kieran?
Just to be fair, I usually do all the ones you've said, and for me, the closest one obviously Wetherspoons. Rolling spoons straight away, pint a pint. It can't go wrong.
Yeah. And it's quite nice Wetherspoons actually. Whitby Wetherspoons is quite nice Wetherspoons as well, isn't it?
Yeah. And you can stay there as well, and that must be cracking. Wake up in the morning because if you get a room above the front of the pub, they've got balconies, and you're looking directly over the harbour. And even though I only live sort of 30 miles away from Whitby, me and our lass have said, it'd be quite nice, but it's always booked. It's that so popular. It's always booked. But, to wake up in the morning after having a skinful downstairs and just be able to sit out on your balcony and overlook the harbour must be great. Yeah, you might get mobbed by the herring gulls and stuff, but, would be
then
great
Nick,
to do that.
well, there were some other breweries in Whitby, and we talked about Whitby, but there were some other breweries in Whitby. I don't know if they still are there or not. I don't know what they're doing.
No, I say Whitby Brewery sort of had, it's been rejuvenated and redone 3 or 4 times. As I know, after Jeff Woolens had been involved in Malton Brewery, he went and helped the Whitby Brewery again. Whitby Brewery originally closed, and then he restarted. And so their most popular beer was called Rattus. That's why I know it's called Black Dog, named after the image that say Dracula was supposed to have bounded ashore. He took the form of a black dog that was known as Rattus. And then I think there is a brewery called the Black Dog Brewery. But once again, whether that's now defunct and it's become Whitby Brewery, I'm not quite sure, because I think last thing I read, they were buying and selling equipment from various different breweries as well. So. And
then last time I was there, I know there's a Whitby gin place open now. Well, I think we're doing some gin, but they've now got their own place, not far from the brewery, actually, up on other side of the RB. And I think they were just laying their gin down. So that another thing to look out for as well, really.
The other good thing about Wetherspoons in Whitby as well is they always have a Whitby beer on. I'm saying that now, and probably the next person who goes in there, they'll find they don't. But often, I always think it's a no-brainer, Wherever the local breweries should be Wetherspoons, but sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. But whenever I go into Wetherspoons in Whitby, they always have a Whitby beer on, which is as it should be, really.
Yeah.
Okay, I should be quick Whitby facts, because we like to do a bit of kind of knowledge, don't we? I'm teacher with me that tells me to teach them. So actually, I'm looking at that image there. I think that's Captain Cook's Endeavour in the background. So Whitby's very famous for Captain Cook, and his statue overlooks the harbour and the abbey from the west side. And Captain Cook obviously is very famous. He discovered Australia in 1768, and in fact, I've been to Melbourne and been into Captain Cook's cottage, which is in the Fitzroy Gardens, which they literally picked up brick by brick from Great Ayton, which is not a million miles from where his family lived, and transported it, whatever it is, to Australia, 10,000 miles, and rebuilt it brick by brick in the middle of some Australian park, which is a bit weird, really. Everybody moans about having to pay $27 to go and look at it, which is just literally a 1-room cottage, which looks very out of place, really. And of course, the other famous site next to that is the Whalebone Arch, which again represents a little bit of again, I guess a bit of controversial with the old history of whaling in Whitby. And I did find out today that actually the whalebones that are currently there, the whalebones were first set up in 1853. But the pair, it's an arch of jawbones. Actually, those are fairly recent, 2003, and they were from a town called Barrow in Alaska, which is Whitby's twin town. And that was a bowhead whale killed by some Inuit Indians, and they sent them over. And previous to that, the last pair in 1963 was sent from Norway, and that was a fin whale. So they actually do change them, because they obviously rot away out on that cliff there and expose it. But Whitby's a lovely, 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 lovely town. It's a bit at the end of the kind of railway and a bit at the end of the line, isn't it? And it's had a few challenges, I think, over the years. And I know when employment, Bruce, your angle of work was being very high there, hasn't it, for the local people and things?
It is, but it's booming now, really. And the potash. When you think about it, it's also now officially Britain's most requested accommodation.
Oh, really?
In the search engines, it's the staycation capital of the country now, Whitby, apparently. More so than St Ives and all these places. People are looking to stay in Whitby more than anywhere in the country.
Believe it or not, I believe it's got the largest boat building shipyard.
That's right.
Trawlers in Europe, which seems incredible, because it's one little yard across the way. Now, I found something else out as well, is that through my line of work, I saw an image on Facebook this week of a German light cruiser. We're talking bloody great German battleship at the end of World War I, was actually broken in Whitby Harbour. And the size of this battleship is absolutely unbelievable. They actually got it up the river. And then on the back of that, somebody also then quoted that and said, the famous radio pirate ship HMS Caroline.
Oh, yeah.
That was actually broken in Whitby as well.
Okay.
So it seems incredible that this little fishing town in the north of England is still knocking out multi-million-pound trawlers, and it's still got a viable business there. Yeah, incredible. And so once again, as you sit outside the Wetherspoons pub, if you look sort of diagonally I think you can just about see
It's
where
up the right hand side river, isn't it? Yeah.
it's the other side. It's the other side of the harbour. But yeah, you'll see
It's
it's almost like scaffold shuttering because
yeah.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, right next to it is a local chip shop there. What's brilliant as well.
Is there?
Straight outside the door, yeah, it's for all the local Whitby residents.
Good little tip. And I was going to say,
there is a pub over there as well in the Kieran next to the shipyard bit.
Yeah.
And they stay open nice and late as well. They're brilliant there.
And again, I was going to say that accommodation, Bruce, the engine sheds at Whitby are all kind of posh apartments now, and they're flogging those quite a lot, really. But I am staying in the Fisherman's Shelter on the Khyber Pass in 2 weeks' time, so I'm looking forward to that. Right over the fun fair and the old hack gun Nick from the Second World War, I guess. That's on
He used to the public toilets.
That'll be fine. We'll be fine.
So it might be very luxurious, but still stick a pee.
Right, so you've done Whitby. You've had a quick couple of hours in Whitby. You've got a lollipop or an ice cream to take with you and some Whitby Jet to whatever you do Whitby Jet. If you jump back to the station and unfortunately don't get back on the train, but get back on the coastliner.
No. The coastliner, does it go from Whitby to Robin Hood's Bay? You have to go on the Arriva bus.
X93.
You do the Scarborough Arriva service. The coastline doesn't go to Robin Hood's Bay.
So you get on the Arriva service and head to Scarborough.
£8.50 for a day ticket on the Arriva service, though I don't think you'll be going any further than just catching the bus from Whitby to Scarborough eventually. But £8.50 they're quoting at the moment.
And Robin Hood's Bay is worth a little stop off, really. It's not probably really a beery haven, but it's quite picturesque. It's quite nice. Actually, amazingly, you've got quite a lot of pubs in Robin Hood's Bay. I think there are now, well, I've got 5, but I think there might be 6 now. So you've got 2 at the top, which I put on the bottom of the screen here, which is the Vic and the Grosvenor. I think, Nick, we tend to go in the Vic, don't we? Because that's by the car park and the bus stop, if I remember rightly. It's got a long bar, hasn't it? Strong.
Well, I mean, they advertise that they say their bar is a traditional Yorkshire bar.
Yeah.
And they maintain that they've got 6 rail ales on. Now, I think the last time we went in there, I don't know if they had 6 rail ales on.
They claim they've got Taylors on, or Timothy Taylor's on constant. And the Grosvenor again is round that corner from there. Very steep down into, again, it's probably going to be rammed in the summer. It's a bit like a miniature Whitby, really, Robin Hood's Bay. On the way down, you've got the Laurel. Just check, because that again has recently been closed and is mainly only available for self-catering. But it's quite a nice little pub, actually. That's owned by the people that have the bay.
Michael. I was there in October and it was closed, and I think it's closed down permanently. And the Dolphin was also closed last time I was there as well.
Right. I think that what I've got from the website is that Laurel is owned by the Bay Horse. And if it gets busy, they'll open it. But at the moment, it's self-catering. They've kind of changed it. It's one of those pubs where you can do self-catering. The Dolphin, Bruce has mentioned, which I think would be my choice if it's open.
Yeah.
Which is been on GBG forever and has got 2. It's quite famous. It's got 2 entrances on 2 different streets in Robin Hood's Bay, which I guess isn't that surprising because it's a very narrow place. And then down at the bottom, Nick, where we've been a few times, is the bay, which I think is a bit disappointing. This is the end of the Wainwright coast to coast walk. So you dip your toe in the water down at St. Bees Head on the Cumbrian coast, and you walk across the top of the Pennines, and you end up dipping your shoes in the North Sea where that tractor is, and then you can go into the Wainwright bar and have a pint of Wainwright in the Bay Hotel. But I've got to say that
last October when I was there, but rather disappointingly, they'd used the right-hand side room just as a storeroom, because you were still out in the pubs then. They were serving food inside, but they just used that as a storeroom, and everybody was forced outside. If you're forced outside, it's invariably you meet someone who just completed and wants to regale everybody with the tales. And
I don't know, you used to get half a pint free, didn't you? You used to get a free half a pint, because when Wainwright died, apparently, he left a legacy behind the bar that anybody who finishes it, apparently you get half a pint, but I don't know if that's still true anymore.
I think it's true.
And Nick, last time we went in there, it was a bit grotty. When you went in there, it wasn't great. So it's worth a little, maybe have a quick zip down. It's very picturesque.
Well, if you walked all the way down that hill, you need some sustenance to get you back up again.
Yeah. And if the tide's in, it'll be lapping up that thing. And actually, I watched that Kate Humble thing. She went down that tunnel on the side there, and that goes some miles up into the hillside, that tunnel that you see there. And it's all like proper, like buried out with little nookie holes where apparently they used to smuggle the brandy and stuff in there as well. I also now know that apparently just around the corner from the picture, if you're on the YouTube channel, there's a place called the Smugglers. which is a
Smugglers,
restaurant. Yeah, which apparently has got a license now to serve real ale as well. And they claim they've got 3 real ales on when they're open normally. So a nice little place to have a drink as well.
You go down to Robin Hood's Bay much, Kieran?
I do. I love going to Robin Hood's Bay later on when everyone's disappeared, because when the tide's out, it's perfect. You can walk right down the beach to Pickering and see the seals bathing.
Yeah.
But again, we would always go this time of the year, wouldn't we? We would always go in the winter to these places because, again, living up that end, they're wild in winter. They're pretty quiet, and yeah, they are nice. But I mean, Whitby's getting busy pretty much 12 months of the year now, isn't it? Let's be honest.
Yeah, there isn't a day when Whitby isn't busy now, unfortunately.
Yeah. So get back on the coastline. Again, in the good old days, you could have caught the train, which, again, you can cycle down that pathway, can't you now? For most, I think you can cycle all the way to Scarborough now, can't you, on that? The Whitby to Scarborough line, yeah. And you, obviously, Scarborough was very much linked to the railway and the development railway. It claims to be the first spa town, first seaside town of England. They found some mineral water, which you can actually go down. In fact, the spa is on that very nice picture there, one of the NYMR posters. And do you remember this, Nick? And Bruce remembers this. It comes out of the wall, doesn't it, below the spa? And it's minging, it's green and horrible, and it tastes fucking horrible. It's very sulphurous, this Scarborough water. But apparently,
it looks like she's been on it, that poster. That she said, "Oh, Dennis, that meat pudding and those pickles, onions, and being given my intestines some jib."
But apparently, in the 17th century, it was all the rage, and Scarborough became one of the first ever go-to destinations. And again,
it was
the railway,
the original seaside spa town. Yeah.
And the railway very much, and the Grand Hotel, which you can just see around the corner in that picture there, which is still very grand. It's a bit I think it's owned by Pontin somewhere now, isn't it? But it's
Britannia Hotel.
Still very grand. And again,
it was built on the seasons, you know. The Grand Hotel.
That's right, yeah. 365 and 12
365
floors
rooms, 4 floors for the 4 seasons, 12 months as well, or is it 12 floors? But yeah, it was built with a reason, built with a purpose.
So the Grand Hotel, you know, you can actually go in, buy a pint, and they've got a balcony at the front of it, and it's an absolutely stunning view. You won't get a pint of real ale. The last time I was there, they said worthy in keg.
Surprised you're not still wanting his red barrel in there, bros.
Yeah.
Going in the average age of the clientele.
But it was a stunning view from that balcony. If you have to get in early on Scarborough Air Show Day, it's a great place to go. And then, of course, from the Grand Hotel, you can just swap back a little bit, can't you, to Vernon Road, which is a road down the beach, isn't it? You've got the hole in the wall there, haven't you? That's one of the original rail ale pubs in Scarborough.
Well, it was, Bruce. I mean, once again, it's had to rejuvenate itself many, many times. I mean, that's once again, when we first started doing Scarborough, that was one of the only pubs that we'd go in as a real ale pub. It was always the real ale mecca, and even going back to the camera guys, I think it was the one that was the most consistent. Now, the last time me and you went in there, there was a guy on his own, he'd gone for his holiday for a week, hadn't he?
Okay.
Yes.
And he was a Man United fan. And he was certainly clearing their lager lines. Maybe had a bit too much, and I think the guy behind the bar was a bit embarrassed because he was the one and only person in the pub, and we had to engage with him in talks about Manchester United of all things, didn't we?
But they're trying to bring it back to the real ale mecca. Then then from the hole in the wall, you can head back, find the path to the bridge across.
There's a hole in the wall there.
There's a hole in the wall, Vernon Road, yeah. And that was great. And then go to the Highlander bar in the Stresser Hotel on the South Cliff, can't you, which is fantastic.
You can. So let me catch up now. I had to go and check the rugby league score. St Helens 10, Hull KR 0. I have a piss as well.
You know, it's going to die. Let's get a plug, yeah.
No problem. So yeah, we mentioned the Holy Wall. I used to love going in there. I know it's had a few challenges, but it's a nice pub to find out. It's not far from the railway station, is it? And the bus station, so that's really good. Have you mentioned Sunderland yet?
No.
Okay, I don't know if I moved myself here because this is a picture you took of me in there. God knows what I'm doing there.
It was the end of a session.
Well, it was actually we'd done Whitby, hadn't we? And Robin Hood's Bay.
Robin Hood's Bay.
We had quite enough in there, but they've got a fantastic little micro bar which's got the B clips out. I thought they're beer mats, not beer mats. They're actually the clips off the pumps, aren't they? They've got everywhere. Yeah. And again, you can just see. I'm gonna move that across now. That they've got that bit of the side there is really interesting. There's like a little veranda, Victorian veranda, which I guess hopefully they might be able to ute on the 12th of April, really, work it through. I'm just saying, Bruce, I'm not quite sure what the hell I was doing to stumble in there. That's last time being it to Whitby and Robin Hood's Bay. And I think I've probably had enough beer by looking at my expression there. But Stumble is a great little micro brew. Again, it's pretty small. So again, you sometimes have to get pushed outside, but it's not too bad.
It's another one of those that was obviously a shop originally. And having a shop, a retail outlet, you don't have to worry about toilets.
Yeah.
So they've had to sort of create a toilet because
That's right.
to have a bar, you're obliged to have a toilet. They've sort of created a toilet behind sort of like a temporary screen that would have been almost the broom cupboard.
I've actually got my notes. It was a solicitors, actually. It was a solicitors in about 1999 and came in thing.
All right.
The Golden Ball is a Sam Smith's pub. It's probably worth going down there. Again, if you can get in those windows, you can see on the picture there. It's a fantastic place. You'll only get Sam Smith's beer, but hey, we quite like
cracking view over the harbour.
Real fire in the front room. It's probably one of the finest pub views in the country. When it's dusk and the lights are coming on, it's fantastic.
And then the rooms up towards the back are surreal. It's like somebody's living room. Just them big, massive, great leather sofas here, isn't there?
Yes.
I love that review.
On the way through to where the toilets are.
I think that was on TripAdvisor. Review of the Golden Ball I picked up somewhere. Reviewed in October 2020. You can't swear or use your phone. I had to talk and actually communicate with my husband. Why would I want to do that? 1 star. But it's worth. Obviously, you need to go down and look at the harbour in Scarborough. It's a great little place, and again, always very, very busy. Busy both in like the fishing and the trips and things. I mean, there still is quite a big. Scarborough's still probably got one of the biggest fishing fleets on that northeast coast these days.
Well, if you call 5 boats a fishing fleet.
Look what you can see there, Nick. They're mainly crabbies. They're mainly doing local,
it might change now we're out of Europe, and these guys will get a fair crack of the whip now.
Yeah, and then a pub in the old town, a bit like Whitby. Scarborough's got an old town as well. And it's worth going up there because it can be absolutely manned on that foreshore. And if you go up 2 streets behind it, it's absolutely deserted, especially in this bit of the old town there. And the Leeds Arms is a great pub. But again, I've been through a few ups and downs, and I think it's had a different change of landlord recently, but great little pub. You'll find lots of locals in there and people who know, I think is what we would say. You're always welcome, though. It's not like one of those places where they're all stop and like the bleeding lamb and they'll all stop and stare at you when you walk in. There's always a good crack going on.
Is it Newcastle Packet that does a karaoke all day, every day?
Yeah, it is.
Yeah. And this is the Leeds Arms got full of fishing nets and bloody baubles hanging on your
lobsters
head as well. And I love their listing says this pub is dog but not children friendly. Which I guess sums up really what you're going to get in there, really. So there's no like bandit machines or video machines, or it's just beer, pot scratchings, and dogs, which is kind of what we like sometimes, isn't it? And then you mentioned, if you zip up then onto the South Bay and you go over one of the nice bridges in Scarborough, and you end up at the Highlander, which doesn't look like it's going to really entice the beer drinker in there, but you'd be amazed. It's got quite a surreal tartan bar, hasn't it, on that ground floor? And I think I've got here, it's got 800 bottles of whiskey in there. And although it kind of has always been very much a whiskey bar, it's part of the Highlander Hotel. I can remember when we were 19, 20, it did great beer then, which is 35 years ago, and it's still doing great beer.
Yeah, there are microbrews, remember?
That's right, yeah. And three house beers and a changing guest beer as well. And as we said before, if you could sit, if it's a nice day and you sit outside on that little terrace, you get a fantastic view of the South Bay.
Just about to see the sea, won't you?
The castle, yeah.
Across the road.
Bar is like wonderful enough, and it's so tight, and you've got to see it. It's really good. Best fish and chips in Scarborough. For me, it will be Mother Hubbard's. Not on the seafront, very close to railway station. A minute from railway station. Fantastic quality fish and chips for about half the price of the Magpie. But certainly not almost about that standard, yeah. Kerry, what would you say?
I totally agree with you on that. I can't think of anywhere better in Scarborough than there. Absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, and for the value, it's fantastic.
Now, my choice would be you've got to walk up the, I don't know what it's called, where the ice cream place on the corner. The main kind of on the front,
Harbour Bar.
Harbour Bar.
Yeah.
Walk up
Go
there.
Peterborough.
get to the toy shop, watch the Scotsman dance by putting 3 pence or whatever in the machine.
Yeah.
And the sea
then-
monster.
And then there's a really good chippy on that corner now.
Yeah.
And it's not so much for the fish and chips, because they're always good in Yorkshire.
Yeah.
But you can then sit in the little kind of garden around the back there and
That's
look over. But that Hornby toy shop is again,
Yeah.
and that Scotsman,
Brilliant.
God knows how many millions of kids like me, who's now 54, will still put 20p in that machine. And a bit like Bruce with the Kippers, I get almost up a cry when it's not working. There's a little sign saying it's not working.
It's a £2 coin nowadays.
And this was a real old-fashioned kind of Hornby train scale kind of shop, and they've got this weird little old-fashioned machine where it's, I don't know what it is. It's like a bubble pool, and Nessie pops up, and
a fish tank.
A Scotsman
fish tank.
dances, lifts his kilt up, doesn't he?
You put your money in, and it activates. Basically, it's a fish pump. It's a fish tank pump that just bubbles the water. So you see the sea monster, and the Scotsman dances. Yeah.
Then
you go across the road and get a tattoo.
And then, as good Catholics, what's that pub on the right there that's got all the bloody sash and the bloody flute players and the trotty on the right hand side there, which always kind of makes me a little bit weird when I walk past it. I can't know what it's called now. It's a very nice pub, but the whole outside of it's just got orange men from up in Northern Ireland with flute parades and
red underbolster, or Norwegian flags, because they get quite a few Norwegians
and Glasgow Rangers, because Glasgow is the kind of Protestant club of the.
Everybody's welcome apart from Catholics.
So I think I've actually been there for a beer, but there we go.
Yeah.
Have we missed anywhere in Scarborough, guys?
No, I don't think so.
No, I mean, I think Scarborough is one of those places that, whilst we've drunk in Scarborough, we haven't really had a tour. I mean, everybody talks about, obviously, the Scarborough Brewing Company up at near the cricket club there. And I've had their beers, and their beers are always good, they're all consistent. I was thinking the other day, Scarborough still has a tap and spile.
Yeah.
I mean, once upon a time, when we first went out drinking, the tap and spile was like the Wetherspoons of the 1980s. It was a case of, there's a tap and spile, they'll have real ale in there. Now, once again, I don't know whether it's the tap and spile from that original chain or whether it's tap and spile, just that's always been the name of the pub. But there still is a tap and spile in Scarborough. And I always pass it in the car, but I never find myself up that end of town to walk in and have a pint.
Is the cricketer still open on the North Bay? Is that the cricketer still there on the North Bay? I think that's closed, has it? Because that used to be near the cricket ground. It used to be really solid pub. And of course, the Floral Hall used to have a real ale bar in it as well, didn't it?
Used to Malt Ruby, the Floral Hall, that's demolished, isn't it? But I say the one we've not mentioned is the Alma, close to the station. The Alma used to be a lovely, really old-fashioned 3-room pub, minute from the station, down a little snicket. There's newsagents if you look across from the station. And if you go to that snicket, it's down the back of some flats. There's an ancient, tiny pub there, 2-room pub. Used to have an ancient collection of typewriters in it. But he tries hard, that chap. He's got his real ale, and that could be a really good pub. I mean, I've not been in for a little while.
Yeah, that's still there. It's still going well, actually. Last year. Yeah, it's still going strong.
That's definitely worth a look in there, isn't it?
Well, yeah. But the main thing, when most people, when they used to finish the theatre productions, used to go there. All the cast and crew and that, yeah.
Yeah, I think it always has been a bit of a lovely pub, hasn't it?
Yeah.
As in theatrical
And
lovers.
then I've also read there's a new craft bar opposite Stephen Joseph Theatre on that kind of whatever that main road is there. On that right-hand side, apparently there's a craft bar there that's doing quite well. Fairly new, so we shall see. Gents, I think we've got to the end. That's been another epic. Got know how long that's been, but it's been really good. I've got my old slide there, so I don't even know what we're doing next week because we kind of got to a point where we were going to
York or London, isn't it?
It's either York Part B, Bruce, or it's London. Yeah. Then we're break for Easter.
Just say, Kieran, obviously there's such massive interest in that link between rail ale and steam trains. Why have the railway never thought about trying to dig up some of the old railway memorabilia? And I bet you've got some more, Bruce. And try and open a sort of rail ale pub on one of the stations.
I think it's a case of watch your space. I think this could be coming very fast.
There we go.
There you go.
So I mean, you'll have the stuff to make it a fantastic, they have the original buildings with its features there. You'll have tons of memorabilia that could go there. It could be fantastic, really, couldn't it? Well, I think that like to be Pickering then, Kieran?
It'll be Pickering, yeah. That's because that's where there's a Premier Inn being open in Pickering, so that is where most people will be staying, you see.
Yeah.
And it
Well,
starts the journey off to Whitby. They come back, and there's also a bar and grill being opened in Pickering now as well, opposite the railway line. Yeah.
what's the bridge on the pub called, Kieran? Because that was up for sale not long back, was it? Is that the Crown?
The Rose.
Is Rose? Because
The
that was
Rose.
up for sale, wasn't it?
It's still up for sale. It hasn't sold.
Oh, so the railway aren't interested in buying that? Because I mean, that's literally a stone's throw from the station, isn't it?
We'd prefer the station straight.
I think
Yeah.
Kieran got beginning about the station, which is literally a spit across
Yeah,
the road,
but
isn't it?
yeah, but I think the Rose is a freehold, whereas, like you're saying, if the station is Green King, then
Yeah.
You're very limited with the Rose because you can't do much with it. Because for us, it won't be just a pub. You need accommodation above and all that
right.
Yeah.
to make it worth your while. But straight opposite what used to be the old Pickering fishing lake is now a big, beautiful building. What is off to be a bar and grill, and they're off to have cocktails and beers on.
Okay.
All right.
That'd be good.
Yeah,
Interested.
Good stuff.
that's something to
Anyway,
watch out for.
out the
Nicholas
beers
is
that I
doing
had
the
tonight, guys, I would say the Yorkshire Pride was better than the Wharfdale, I'm sorry to say, but there we are. 21s. How was your 10%, Mike?
I've just cracked it now. Actually, it's Brew York. It's what is it? It's a peanut caramel and marshmallow milk stout, and it's going down quite well actually. How's Southern Comfort, Kieran? Is Southern Comfort going down?
It's
all
gone.
right?
It's gone.
It's gone. Yeah, really. Right. So, well, I think we will cogitate and whatever that bloody tosser American bloke used to say, and come up with a podcast theory for next week. If I can get Bruce's ass together, we might do York Part B, I think, next week, but we'll wait and see. Bruce, you need to send me the beer list for next week. So on the website. Thank you. The pubs we mentioned that will be on the website by tomorrow. So that is podbeanmaltravale.com. Remember, you can get us on all good podcasts and on our YouTube channel, which is Malt Travail, if you want to look at some of the pictures. Kieran, it's been fantastic having you, mate.
Yeah,
it's been
I've
really
been glad
great.
to be on. Thank you very much.
It's been really good. And listen, best wishes for whatever happens in the next few weeks. Hopefully, you can be dead busy over the summer. And again, we will tweet and push again the support page, so people do want to just send a few quid just to keep things ticking over.
Thank you for that. Every little helps.
Absolutely. So it's been an absolute pleasure, gents. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic Easter, and we will hopefully regroup next week.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Cheers, guys.
Okay.
See you later.
Bye.
Just